Get him out, now! The officer's voice cut through the store like a blade. A teenage boy, clutching nothing but a bag of snacks, was yanked by the arm and dragged across the floor. Shoppers froze. Some stared. Some whispered. To them, he looked like just another suspect, another kid who didn't belong. The officers smirked with authority, certain they were right. But what they didn't know was this. In less than 10 minutes, the entire city would be watching, and their world would turn upside down. Have you ever been judged without anyone knowing who you truly were? Tell us in the comments. Before we begin, hit subscribe. It's appreciated. It was a Saturday afternoon, the kind of day where the city seemed to breathe a little slower. For 17-year-old Marcus, it was just another stop at the corner store. He wasn't dressed fancy, just a hoodie, jeans, and sneakers. To anyone passing by, he looked like any other teenager grabbing a snack before heading home. But Marcus wasn't just any kid. He carried a name that carried weight, though few people ever connected the dots. His father was the city's mayor, a man known for his speeches about equality and justice. Marcus, though, lived like a regular teen, never leaning on his father's title, never flashing his privilege. He walked into the store quietly, the bell above the door jingling as he headed toward the shelves. He was thinking about the game, that night, his friends, the usual noise that fills a teenager's mind. He picked up a bottle of juice, some chips, and lingered near the counter, scrolling on his phone while waiting to pay. To him, it was nothing unusual, just part of the rhythm of his week. But what he didn't notice were the eyes following him. 2 officers called in earlier about a supposed shoplifter had been watching. They didn't ask questions. They didn't bother to see what he was holding. To them, Marcus wasn't a customer. He was a suspect. This was the moment that would change everything. What started as an ordinary stop at a store would turn into a scene that gripped the entire city by the throat. If you were in Marcus's shoes, just a teenager trying to live a normal life, what would you do when the world saw you as guilty? Before you even opened your mouth? Marcus reached the counter, setting his snacks down, but before he could even pull out his wallet, a heavy hand clamped onto his shoulder. The sudden grip sent a chill through him, his phone slipping from his hand and clattering to the floor. Confusion turned to fear as he looked up and saw 2 officers, their expressions hard, their bodies already moving with certainty. "Step aside," one barked, pulling him away from the counter. The cashier froze, unsure whether to speak or stay silent. Customers stared, some pulling out their phones, sensing that something was about to unfold. Marcus tried to explain, but they didn't want to hear. His words were drowned out by the shuffle of boots and the hiss of walkie-talkies. They dragged him toward the door, his sneakers scraping against the tiles, his heart racing with disbelief. He hadn't done anything. He hadn't even left the store. Yet here he was, being treated like a criminal in front of everyone. The humiliation burned deeper than the grip on his arm. His chest tightened as he thought about how quickly things had spiraled, how powerless he suddenly felt. The crowd outside grew larger as the officers pulled him onto the pavement. People whispered, some pointed, others lifted their phones higher, recording each second. Every camera captured Marcus's wide eyes and the officer's forceful hands. His hoodie was tugged, his bag ripped from his grasp, snacks spilling across the concrete like evidence of a crime that never happened. Inside, the cashier hesitated before finally speaking up. "He didn't steal anything," she whispered, but her voice was swallowed by the noise outside. The officers didn't pause to check, didn't stop to listen. They had already decided who Marcus was. To them, he was another statistic, another problem to be handled quickly and roughly. Marcus's thoughts blurred between fear and anger. He wondered if this would end like the stories he had seen online, stories that never ended well for kids who looked like him. His mind flashed with faces of others, names that had become hashtags. He wasn't sure if he would be next. The bystanders kept recording. Some shouted, "Let him go!" Others asked what he had done. But the officers only tightened their grip, forcing him toward their car. Marcus's pulse hammered as he struggled to breathe, his voice shaking as he tried again to insist on his innocence. Still, they didn't care. What none of them realized, what the crowd couldn't see, was that every second of this was leading to a moment that would rock the city. In just minutes, the truth about who Marcus really was would break open like a storm, and the officers' arrogance would become their downfall. But for now, he was still just a teenager on the ground, hands pinned, dignity stripped, while the cameras kept rolling. The countdown to their mistake had already begun. The flashing red and blue lights painted the street as Marcus was shoved against the police car. The cold metal pressed into his chest, the officer's knee digging into his back. He struggled to breathe, his face hot with shame and fear. Phones were everywhere now, dozens of people recording, voices shouting, questions flying. Yet the officers ignored them all, focused only on restraining a boy they were convinced was guilty. Marcus's heart pounded as he realized how fragile the moment was. One wrong move, one twitch mistaken for resistance. His life could end right here on the sidewalk in front of strangers. His father's face flashed in his mind, not the mayor, but his dad, the man who always told him to stay calm, to keep his head down, to survive encounters like this. But survival felt impossible with the weight crushing his body. Then, the crowd shifted. Someone shouted his name. At first, the officers didn't notice, too locked into their roles, but then the whispers spread. "That's Marcus, the mayor's son." The phones zoomed in, capturing the disbelief, the realization starting to ripple through the onlookers. The officers stiffened, suddenly unsure, their authority cracking like glass. One officer pulled back slightly, glancing around at the cameras, at the crowd pressing closer. The other kept his grip firm, unwilling to admit they might have made a mistake. The tension hit its peak. The boy pinned to the ground, the city watching live through dozens of screens, the officers teetering on the edge of a scandal that could explode in seconds. And then came the piercing wail of a siren, different from the others. A sleek black car screeched to a stop. The door flew open, and out stepped the mayor himself, his face a storm of fury and fear. In that instant, everything changed. What do you think happens when power collides with prejudice in front of the whole world? Tell us in the comments before we reveal the truth. The mayor's voice cut through the chaos like thunder. In an instant, the crowd parted, cameras raised higher, capturing every breath of the unfolding storm. The officers froze, their confidence evaporating as recognition settled in. They had not dragged just any teenager onto the pavement. They had dragged the mayor's son. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the clicks of recording phones and the sharp command of the mayor demanding his son be released. Marcus stumbled to his feet, his clothes rumpled, his dignity bruised. His father steadied, him glaring at the officers who moments earlier treated his child like a criminal. The weight of the mistake settled on them visibly, their hands trembling, their excuses stuck in their throats. No justification could undo the image already burned into countless phones and hearts. The boy wasn't a thief. He was innocent. And the city had just witnessed the truth. That skin color alone had made him a target. News spread like wildfire. By nightfall, the footage dominated every screen. The officers faced suspension, the department launched investigations, and the city found itself forced into a mirror it had long tried to avoid. Marcus, once invisible in his normal hoodie and jeans, had become a symbol, proof that racism didn't care about titles, status, or family names. If it could happen to the mayor's son, what chance did those without power ever have? Marcus would never forget the fear pressing into his chest, the helplessness of being judged before he was even heard. But he also knew his story carried weight now, more than just his own survival. It became a voice for those who never got to tell their side, for those whose endings had been carved into gravestones instead of news headlines. And so, the question, remained, lingering long after the videos stopped trending. How many more lives must be broken before justice is more than just a word in speeches?